When Doug Ford took office, he said that the Ontario Autism Program was broken, but 5 years later, there are tens of thousands of children who are getting zero help from this government. And many parents are finding themselves on waitlist for years before they get any help. And when it comes to autism therapy, one of the things that's important to note is that early intervention is extremely important. As somebody who has family members with autism, people who were in this program before Ford took over, I can say firsthand that early intervention completely puts their life on a different path, allowing them to become their whole best selves and productive members of society. But with Ford destroying the Ontario Autism Program, it can cost families $40,000 a year to get their children the therapy that they need. Families are going into debt and selling their homes just to get their kids services that we used to have 5 years ago. And while Ford says that the Liberals broke the autism program, he's had 4 different ministers on the case and none of them have been able to solve this. And Doug's not putting his best people on this. The second minister in charge of the autism file has literally never been given another ministerial position since. And the previous one was given that role as a demotion after they screwed up the long-term care system. The government is also not being transparent about wait times, leaving families and service providers in the dark. Doug Ford says that he runs Ontario like a business, but it's a poorly run business because he's not giving autism service providers the information and the funding that they need, leaving them completely unable to plan, affecting their staffing levels and the types of supports that they can provide. And Alina Cameron, the president of the Ontario Autism Coalition, knows this firsthand, having waited more than 5 years for publicly funded essential autism services for their daughter, who is now 8 years old. And listen, the government set a goal of clearing the waitlist of 23,000 kids, and they also doubled the funding. And yes, COVID did delay them a bit. But the way that Ford goes about doing things makes it impossible for families to get the help that they need, because families need to apply for funding for their essential therapies instead of having physicians refer the children to publicly funded community services. And this can only be done after a child gets an autism diagnosis, which can take years. And while there are over 60,000 children in Ontario who need these essential services, the government funding only covers about 20,000 of them. And when the government says that they've already provided services to 42,000 children, that's a lie, because it really only refers to one-time payments or one-off services, which is not how treating autism works. You wouldn't expect to be better after going to one therapy session. You wouldn't expect your back to be better after going to one physiotherapy session. What families need is the core therapy program, a program that has consistent funding until that child is 18 years old. But Ford has no interest in providing the funds and services that are needed for these children. He would rather create a two-tiered system. Doug Ford has shown time and time again that he does not care about autistic children. Instead, he sees them as a liability and a cost. Don't take my words for it. Google his past comments about autistic children, because this is what Doug Ford thinks about people who may need special services. Doug Ford claims he spent his whole life helping children with special needs, yet he gets booed at the Special Olympics. Because vulnerable communities in Ontario know that Doug Ford does not care about them. He sees them as a liability. He will not fund their programs, and he does not see them as equals. But Premier Ford, as somebody who has a disability myself, I can tell you that early intervention is the most important thing that we can do for these children. Because when we get them the therapies and the services that they needed, they no longer become children with autism. They become full-fledged adults in our society, able to do amazing things and be productive and be capable. But you don't see them that way, and you never will. Show people the respect they deserve. Fund the program.